Of the Benghazi hearings. Some great reporting going on from American Family News as always, but also from outlets like The Gateway Pundit. Now, we are blessed to have our good friend Buzz Jacobs. The band was playing him back there. They're very excited about Buzz Jacobs, too, because he is the co-director of Benghazi 9/11. That would be Benghazi-911.com if you want to learn more about it, or just go to the Facebook page, American Family Radio, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Boom, you lock in on that, find out about it. It's a documentary. They're working on it, and they are looking for support. Buzz, welcome.
Crane, thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for the very nice introduction.
Well, it's well-deserved, and I guess I'm just going to ask out of the gate, your initial reaction, the hearings today. Were you shocked at any point? Surprised?
I was. Let me just say, I think unfortunately, it confirms some suspicions that I've had and have stated previously on your program and elsewhere, and just it's disappointing, really. I think overall, because these four brave Americans who were under siege, and others, up to 33 of them, as we understand it, needed our help. And unfortunately, despite what we were told before, there was a special operations unit in Tripoli that could have helped out in Benghazi, and they were told to stand down.
And I want to get to that specifically, not to interrupt, but it leads into where we are, which is the truth that was exposed today versus what was said by the likes of Patrick Ventrell over at the State Department just a couple days ago regarding whistleblowers. And we'll open up with that. Here is cut number 15, and this is Mr. Ventrell, State Department spokesman, being asked about the whistleblowers by a CNN reporter. Roll it.
We have always encouraged any State Department employee who wants to share their personal story, whether it be to the ARB or the Congress, to tell the truth, period. Full stop, end of story. That's long been our position, and we've made that clear from the start. In terms of these particular individuals, the committee didn't come to us asking witnesses. We found out through the media and through the announcement the same way you all did. In terms of these potential transcripts out there, we haven't seen the transcripts. So
yes, you have. Come on, Patrick.
We have seen excerpts of these transcripts, but we do not have them, and they have not been provided to us.
I mean, you know the gist of what they're saying and what their arguments are.
So let's take a good look at the first charge, which was our claim we've encouraged people to talk. This, of course, is Mr. Hicks discussing this today, being asked about being able to speak with members of Congress in particular. Roll it.
I was instructed not to allow the RSO, the acting deputy chief of mission, and myself to be personally interviewed by Congressman Chaffetz.
So the people at State told you don't talk to the guy who's coming to investigate?
Yes, sir.
Said don't talk with the congressman? Now you've had several congressional delegations come to various places you've been around the world. Has that ever happened where lawyers get on the phone to you prior to a congressional delegation coming to investigate a time when we've had 4 Americans lose their lives? Have you ever had anyone tell you, don't talk with the people from Congress coming to find out what took place?
Never.
Never. And you've had dozens and dozens of congressional delegations that you've been a part of?
Yes, sir.
First time it's ever happened?
Yes, sir.
So, Buzz, your thoughts?
Well, it's unprecedented, really. Even Mr. Hicks himself says, keep in mind, this is the guy who is he was, after Ambassador Stevens' death, the number one, the most highest ranking U.S. official in Libya. And for him to be told to not talk to a member of Congress is unbelievable. In some regards, it makes you wonder, is it an obstruction of justice? Maybe not in the legal definition sense, but in the sense of the U.S. Congress should have the right to investigate a tragedy that happened under our government, and is an equal branch of power with the executive branch. So it's really disturbing. It seems to me that every member of Congress, upon learning of this, should be totally outraged, not from just on the Republican side, but from on the Democrat side. But yet, unfortunately, it seemed like the questions, to me, I'm sure many of your listeners would agree, were only coming, any of the tough questions were only coming from one side, and the other side was defending the administration. But when you hear that, when you would at least want to give courtesy to your fellow member of Congress, and just imagine, Crane, again, I just keep saying this, just imagine if this was George W. Bush. What would happen if in a hearing we heard that the senior person from George W. Bush's State Department under Condi Rice told somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan not to talk to a member of Congress from the opposite party? The New York Times, every one of these news organizations would be going crazy. It'd be the lead story. And I haven't watched the news yet this evening, but let me just take a wild guess. That's not going to be the lead story.
Buzz Jacobs. Buzz Jacobs is the co-director of Benghazi-911.com. That's the address. I'm giving that so you can go to it right now. Buzz Jacobs. I just was going to go buzz911.com. Here it is. Benghazi-911.com. And now we move to Hillary Clinton. Did I get that right, by the way, Buzz?
It's a little confusing. No, it's Benghazi 9-11. Benghazi9-11.com.
Thank you. I need a teleprompter, much more than the president. Trust me on that. Thank you for clarifying, and I'll get it right. I'm sure by the 20th interview, I'll nail it. Let's go to, here is Hillary Clinton receiving the bodies and a statement that she made regarding the video. Roll it.
We've seen the heavy assault on our post in Benghazi that took the lives of those brave men. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with. It is hard for the American people to make sense of that because it is senseless and it is totally unacceptable.
And now we have the rest of the story, if you will, and this is under questioning Mr. Hicks talking about the last words of Ambassador Chris Stevens, pointing out that it was never the video. Roll it.
So fast forward, Mr. Hicks, to the Sunday talk shows and Ambassador Susan Rice. She blamed this attack on a video. In fact, she did it 5 different times. What was your reaction to that?
I was stunned. My jaw dropped, and I was embarrassed.
Did she talk to you before she went on the 5 Sunday talk shows?
No, sir.
You were the highest-ranking official in Libya at the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
And she did not bother to have a conversation with you before she went on national television?
No, sir.
So Ambassador Rice directly contradicts the evidence on the ground in Libya. She directly contradicts the president of Libya. She directly contradicts the last statement uttered by Ambassador Stevens.
So that's Trey Gowdy. And again, Buzz, I'll just throw to you your response to that.
Well, it's absolutely positively shocking that the highest-ranking official in Libya, our lead person on the ground, in country, at the time of this attack, the person who you would, just use common sense. If this is the person who you would want to talk to before going out to talk and brief the entire country and world about what just happened in the heat of a presidential campaign. I can never remember, in 3 years of serving at the White House, I can never remember any single time when my bosses, Homeland Security Advisor or others, would go out and talk on national television without receiving detailed and thorough briefings from the operational agencies, and in particular, the people on the ground or out in the field, as we would like to say, when I was there. So it's absolutely positively remarkable. And I can only think of one reason why you wouldn't want to talk to the person on the ground, and that is because you don't really want to tell the true story of what's happening. And that seems to be a common and reoccurring pattern that we are confirming today in this hearing, and one which many of us have had suspicions about now for months and months.
Now we move to the Mr. Hicks talking about the stand-down order. Here is that portion. Roll it.
Again, we determined that we needed to send a second team from Tripoli to secure the airport for the withdrawal of our personnel from Benghazi after the mortar attack.
But were any of these U.S. military personnel not permitted to travel on a rescue mission or relief mission to Benghazi?
They were not authorized to travel.
What happened with those personnel?
They remained in Tripoli with us. The medic went with the nurse to the hospital to lend his skills to the treatment of and care of our wounded.
How did the personnel react to being told to stand down?
They were furious. I can only say, well, I will quote Lieutenant Colonel Gibson. He said, "This is the first time in my career that a diplomat has somebody in the military."
Referring to fortitude. Now we close with this, and then Buzz. Well, I'll actually tell you this. It had to do with the stand-down order. My question to you, final, because of time left: who would have to give that order? Would that go all the way to the top, Buzz Jacobs?
Well, the answer is it depends. It depends if you have a president who's engaged in what's going on when there's Americans under crisis, or if you have a president who went to bed. If you have a president who's engaged and sitting at the White House Situation Room with the heads of the other agencies, DOD, et cetera, around the table, that's the person who gives the order. If you have the person who, well, doesn't really like the narrative that's developing in this inconvenient attack in the middle of a presidential campaign, well, then maybe there's another person, and it does get pushed down to a lower level. But clearly, the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff have testified that they were engaged, but they also testified there was no stand-down order. So something isn't right here. There's some kind of misinformation. Somebody isn't telling the truth, and we'll leave it up to your listeners, Crane, to make their own judgments about who is not.
And you are staying on this, obviously, Benghazi9-11.com, and you'll continue to join us and bring us updates and your reflections on this. But you've been doing the great work, Buzz, and we appreciate you for doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Crane. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. All right, Buzz Jacobs, Benghazi9-11.com. On the flip side, Cruz versus Reed. AFR Talk.